Hi guys, welcome back to On Our Terms, hosted by moi, Ismatou Bah, the big sister that fucks up so you don't have to. As usual, let's set some ground rules. This is not a safe space, it's a brave space. And in honor of that, mummy, the girls are polyamorous. Featuring Jasiel Lampkin and Skylar-Bree Takyi. Skylar-Bree is a queer black woman, Jersey native, and screenwriter. She studied history and literature at Harvard University with a focus in ethnic studies and queer theory, graduating magna cum laude and winning the Lee Drama Prize for the student with the most promise in the dramatic arts. Period. After graduating, she moved to LA to pursue a career in storytelling. Since then, she has gained representation at CAA, written on Bad Robot and J.J. Abrams' HBO Max series, Subject to Change, and written for 2 seasons of a renowned filmmaker's fantasy series at Netflix. The daughter of Nigerian and Ghanaian immigrants, Skylar has been long influenced by her cultural communities, their love for storytelling, and the ease with which they blur the mundane and miraculous. Period. Her writing is informed by African diasporic studies, queer theory, and gender studies, as well as speculative genres like sci-fi, horror, and magical realism. In both writing and life, Skylar works to radically prioritize the most marginalized. She is also a doula trainee, I did not know that, with the hopes of building a practice that actively combats the subpar experiences and abysmal maternal mortality rates experienced by Black American women. While writing is Skylar's first love, her love for alternative aesthetics, fashion, and music is a guiding force. On and off day, you can find her bleaching her eyebrows or adding more tattoos to her extensive collection. Jasiel is an artist who uses film, music, and writing to connect with other wild and peaceful weirdos like themselves. They have a newsletter called All Ducks Rock, which is a curated brain dump on media, gay shit, and anything else on their mind at the end of the world. Whether they're editing a short or DJing your next function, they want to remind you to fuck the police and free Palestine.
Period.
So happy to have you guys on. How are you guys?
Happy to be here. Hey, happy Sunday. It's just a miracle to be alive, you know?
Honestly, today we're going to be talking about polyamory. And to start off, like, we're just going to jump right into it.
Ready
And the
to
main
rock.
reason I even wanted to have this episode was because I think as of recently, well, actually, I want to say, like, Skylar, you introduced it to me and the conversation about it. And I feel like we talked about it throughout the years. And then when I learned that you were in a polyamorous relationship, I was like, this is perfect. Both of you guys together.
People are doing it.
I'm pretty sure you guys...
Not the allegations. Sorry.
You guys can confirm or deny this, but rumor is that you guys used to hook up?
Before, once upon a time.
Let's get into
that.
that.
I don't know. It's just true.
Yeah, there's not much more. It's very, it's
it just
culture,
happened. Really. Yeah.
Culture. No, I don't know. It was really nice and casual and like...
In college?
Yeah.
In college, towards the end.
Got you. Yeah, I mean, I want to say...
I should have more details. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely more details. Like, so, like, where was it sophomore year, freshman year? Like,
no, late, like senior year.
Yeah.
Got
you.
I didn't know Skylar really before that.
Yeah.
Like, I knew Skylar.
How'd you guys meet?
Well, through Cahleb, through acapella.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't want to talk about acapella.
Okay.
That can't be my narrative.
Okay.
No, I mean, you could be on the podcast.
Yeah.
I just mean,
but we definitely like knew of each other for years, but just hadn't necessarily clicked.
Speaking personally, I definitely came out as gay kind of late, which means that my gay awakening, for me at least, was kind of a fun, like, productive era. Like in my head,
productive is so funny.
In my head, it feels like when you come out, I feel like, and there's a moment where you kind of just like pop on people's radars, like other lesbians find out that you're not a lesbian, and so to me, that's sort of how I feel like things happen. Is that like I sort of popped up in Skylar's perspective now that I was like culturally relevant.
Oh, wow.
Culturally relevant. So
I'm just being honest. Before that, no one. After being gay, everyone.
Yeah.
Got you. Were you guys always polyamorous, like from the get-go, or is this something that, like...
I think I didn't know the word polyamory until late. I feel like that shit just came out of nowhere in like 2021, like in terms of a term.
Yeah, no,
I really never heard of that. Like I knew polygamy.
Yeah.
And I knew that I guess people could be in relationships that were different than monogamy, but I didn't really know the term polyamory is like a casual thing that you could be up to in your day-to-day life and like have a job. Like I didn't know you could do both. I guess.
And have a job.
I'm serious.
Yeah, I feel like I also didn't necessarily have the language, But I was literally just saying to Jazz before this that, like, when I was in first grade, I was in a polyamorous relationship. Like,
How? I mean,
I look back on
low-key,
it and
me
I'm like,
too, I
wait,
think.
yeah, no, because I was like, I had this boyfriend who had 2 girlfriends, but why was I dating the girlfriend? And like, she was definitely a stud. You know what I'm saying? That was the vibe. And yes, it was first grade, but that was the vibe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like I started hearing it. I want to say it was like my junior summer, and I was interning at this really horrible place.
Of college?
Yeah, of college. We can actually bleep it. It was when I was at and I met this girl, and she, like, her and her partner were exploring polyamory for the first time. Or actually, no, they had been doing polyamory, and she was explaining it to me because I was like, oh my God, like, why would you do that? Like, how could you do that? And like, I think, like, what do you mean you're sharing your partner? Like, it was just such a foreign idea to me. Like, I thought, like, it was I want to say, like, I definitely was judgy in the moment. Looking back at it, I was definitely judgy because I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But then I feel like I had more conversations with Cahleb about it. And I was like, you know what? You are right. Like, this is a way of life that is so different. Like, I need to read more. I need to learn more. And then surprisingly, as of recently, it started popping up on mainstream media a lot more.
Everywhere.
I'm curious who's pushing the polyamorous agenda.
But it's not really the polyamorous agenda because it's like the worst depictions of polyamory you could ever have. Like these crazy toxic crashes and burns. Like couple to throuple. I ate it up. But it was bad. That was more morally incorrect.
Yeah, but you also see it in Succession. Like with the daughter
Girl,
who wants to.
No, that's not. But that's what I mean by that's not polyamory representation. That is a woman who wants to cheat on her husband. And I feel like
they
so
claim
much
it as polyamory.
I know, but that's what I think. That's exactly what I mean when I say that's not real. That's not what polyamory is. Polyamory is not telling your spouse that you just married night of the wedding that you want to have an open relationship. That's insane.
that is insanity.
So is that literally the plot?
Insane.
Yes, and I think it's just doing such a disservice to people who actually practice like ethical non-monogamy and like actually have like ground rules and good communication and like treat people like people, that people who ultimately kind of just want to get to like fuck around are just like, oh yeah, like let's be poly. Like I mean,
that happened to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
you got hit with the let's be poly.
No, so it was so funny. No, when my first boyfriend was breaking up with me, he basically was like, we are over because like you're basically like I'm so small-minded and like I have this really tiny mind that only like that traditional mind that only values like monogamy, and like I need to open up my brain because like I'm in 1995 or something, like and he's in the future apparently.
He's in 2008.
Yeah, and he knows that his brain is just so big and he is just so polyamorous and like he's doing it so right, and like my little brain, like he has to leave me because he has to grow.
He's so
and
ugly.
Come to find out, he just wanted to fuck other girls.
Some people want to be single is the issue with polyamory. Some people just want to be single.
Yeah. But the thing is, they also don't want to just be single because some people like literally like the transgression. Like they like violating people's trust and boundaries, which is why like when people are like, oh, like he keeps cheating, he should be like polyamorous. Like, no, like you're actually exactly the person who shouldn't be because you like to lie. Like you like to do things in secret.
Yeah. And that was someone that's what they liked. Like it really got them off. Like they really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And so looking back at that, I remember also for the longest, like he was
your
the
example
face.
Of poly. Yeah.
So I was
the face of poly.
He was the face of poly for me. And imagine how gross. Like
no, honestly, I really don't judge like any like straight woman who kind of like turned her nose up at like the sudden suggestion of polyamory, because I do think it's like something people suggest without actually wanting to really be polyamorous. They just want to do what they want and get away with it, you know? And, sorry, this isn't even what this episode is about, but I'm just like, the girls are out here looking coochie they don't want to lick. Just because your boyfriend wants a threesome.
No, you literally see one, like, you hear it all the time. No, you hear it all the time. People are like, yeah, my boyfriend wanted it, so I did it for his 30th birthday. Like, really, girl? Like, really?
Oh.
Like, you're doing it for him? Doing things for a man? Like, I just, like, and it's like, you can tell, like, they don't want to do this a lot of the time.
That's
it really is tough, like, because it's not
quite it.
If you're not doing it for yourself, it's just not a good situation. I think for me, also, like, I have been monogamous my entire life and haven't really explored polyamory because I don't know much about it. Like, I don't know enough to be like, this is something that I want to try right now. But also, like, the monogamous relationships, I do know, though, the monogamous relationships I have seen, the marriages, especially specifically in my community, I know I don't want that. You know
What I
mean?
like about being poly is that I feel like it forces you to decide the kind of relationship that you want to have, which I think, as much as like monogamy is popular, I don't think people are making choices. Like, I actually think there's not enough active thought happening in those types of marriages or in certain couples. They're just like together because it's what you're supposed to do. And I think poly, regardless of like how many partners you have or how you want to practice it, like it does force you to like acknowledge and be intentional with how you want to be romantic with someone or be invested in someone.
And that's a part about it that I like. It's the intention aspect of it, which I think is really cool because even if you are pursuing other relationships, you're choosing the kind of relationship you're having with someone. There's so many things about it that you're being so intentional and communicative about that I feel like a lot of people don't realize. Because like I said, like the only reason why I would say I'm monogamous is not because I intentionally chose it. It's like, no, I know that I want to be with one man and that's it. It's because that's all I know. Like that's all that's the standard. That is what it has to be apparently. And like I just been like, okay, I guess that's what everybody's doing. But no, not everybody's doing it. Yeah. So how did you come to the realization that you wanted to explore polyamory?
At least in my relationship, I've been with my partner now for like 3.5, almost 4 years. And when we were about a year, well, okay, to be honest, we started dating in kind of a poly way, I think. I don't know, like in the sense that we were both hooking up with Skylar. And
connector.
It was kind of, I don't know, like even in that sense of like getting to know someone that way, I think kind of opens up anything. Anything is possible at that point. But we've been together monogamous for about a year. And then at one point, my partner was going out of town for work. They were going to be gone for like 2 months. And we were like, oh, should we try opening up? Which I guess that was my term before polyamory. Polyamory was just like open relationship. It was like a concept that I had heard of, had tried, had failed at. And this was sort of, we were trying to make long distance make sense. And we were like, okay, maybe we should try opening up and see what happens. And like, honestly, nothing happened in that time, but it did open the door for us to start just like kind of exploring other people and like exploring our own relationship. Like at that time we were, I don't know, like 22, 23 and feeling very committed to each other, but also feeling very young in terms of like, am I only ever going to date one person again? Like, no, that's ridiculous. But also I don't need to break up with this person. I also don't want that. So it's kind of like, we're kind of giving each other permission to continue to be young, continue to date, continue to have fun without having to like let go of each other. It was sort of how we decided to be poly.
I don't know. Did you have any examples of successful polyamorous relationships where you were like, oh, okay, like this is something what I want to do? And like, how did you approach that conversation? Did you guys like first meeting, like set all these rules or boundaries? Like, is it that, like, I don't know. I feel like also sometimes when they talk about ethical polyamory, they make it sound like such a corporate meeting.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, it sounded like a corporate
contract. But I kind of recommend, I think we did not do that when we first started, but I kind of wish we had. Like, we were ultimately poly for like almost 2 years. Basically 2 years. And when we first started, it was super chill, super casual because neither of us were really up to anything. Like, and so it was very much like, oh, I have a crush on this person. And then that was kind of it. So I didn't feel, there was no need for like ground rules and stuff. But like, once you start involving other people, once you start involving other emotions, like when more variables come into place, it starts to be important to like make a contract, not because you need to be like legally bound to anything, but because it's like, oh, we need to make sure we're on the same page and that we're talking about the same things when we're talking about, like, what counts as a hookup? Like, what counts as flirting? Like, if I'm dating this person, how many times can I stay over at their place? Like, or should I not stay over at their place at all? Like, just, like, all the little nuance. Like, is it too much for me to get this person a gift? Like, is it too much for me to be texting this person while we're hanging out? Like, all these little nuances of, like, dating that I didn't necessarily think about in monogamy because it's very much just, like, me and one person. But once you start adding a third person, a fourth person, and, like, different emotions, it's helpful just to know from the jump, like, okay, this is what we're agreeing to, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to split it up.
God, and you guys didn't do that, is my understanding.
We didn't do it until we started fighting. Just being honest, like, we made it pretty far.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was kind of like...
It was impressive.
There would be moments where things are, like, weird, and you're like, oh, that was weird, but then we would talk through it, and it would be fine, but then it did get to a point where it was kind of like, okay, I'm upset, and I don't know why you're upsetting me? And then the person be like, oh, I'm not trying to upset you. I'm just trying to do this. It's like, well, I'm trying to do that. And that's where the contract comes in handy. Because then it's like,
okay,
obviously...
Yeah. What are our boundaries? What are our expectations?
Yeah, and like
how
when
are
you're
you not meeting it?
in love with a person, like, I think a contract helps you with that feeling of doubt that you get being poly, of like, oh, is this person actually looking out for me? Like, do they have my best interest? Are they trying to play me? Like, why are they doing this to me? And a contract is like, oh, they're not doing anything to me. Like, this is just what they thought was fair and right. And like, this is what I think is fair and right. And now it's easier to kind of meet in the middle.
And then I guess that segues into the next point I want to get into, which is like jealousy. I'm guessing you were feeling a little bit of jealousy, or they were feeling jealousy. Like, how do you manage that? Like, is like, you know, I think also a lot of people, another myth I also want to debunk for myself is like, I think for the longest I always thought like polyamorous people are not jealous. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they set all these rules and expectations. They know what's going on. Like, they are not jealous. They have cracked the code. Like, jealousy is not real anymore for them. And I realized, no, there's jealousy, but it's like how you deal with jealousy. And so how do you guys, like, how do you guys deal with it in those type of relationships? But also, I know that, have you ever been in a polyamorous relationship?
Not the call out. Sorry.
No, so I really don't know why I'm here, honestly. I'm just, no. I'll go. So, no. Which, you know. But, I mean, I guess wrapping back to a couple of questions ago, I have always felt this, like, feeling, this desire, one might say. I guess the sense that, like, there is more with, at least within me, and like my capacity to like love and be interested in more than one person. And I just felt that way for a long time, and again, like, didn't have the language, but like I remember even feeling that way as like a younger child, of like, oh, like, how am I gonna marry someone forever, or like, wouldn't it be nice to maybe have two spouses for vibes? And I feel like, honestly, in college I took a class called Sex and Ethics that was like really, really interesting. And there was one part where we read like an article that was basically about how monogamy in the nuclear family is very much like a tool of capitalism to keep people's like resources siloed, and to keep like individual households just like really under-equipped with resources and support. Not to be on my conspiracy theorist hotep shit, but like
that's what this podcast is for, actually.
There is just a lot wrapped up in keeping like people struggling for childcare, struggling to like manage their household bills, struggling to like pay their rent or their mortgage, and keeping people siloed in only two parent households, especially if, let's say, one person has to not work to take care of children, or you're like, you know, spending a majority of your, you know, income on childcare, as opposed to like, oh, if this was like not to use the word polycule, but if this were a polycule with like, I don't know, 3 people in it, or like someone's dating someone else and there are like 5 adults in this household, like, what an incredible way to like, problem solve. Exactly. Like, oh, okay, like, you won't be home, okay, sure, I'll watch like Little Johnny. I don't know what our polycule,
you know, like raising a child in a community.
Yeah, it's like a village.
Yeah, in a village, which is like very, like, I want to say, like, it mirrors like a lot of like African values. Like, a village raises a child.
Exactly.
I actually met someone who was born into a polyamorous like family, and they, like, we were talking about it in class as well, and they were just like, yeah, like, I'm a product of a polyamorous relationship, and I'm normal. Like, I'm fine. Like, I'm great, guys.
In fact, I had a lot of support.
Yeah, and like, I was raised with a loving community of adults that, like, you know what I mean? There was never a shortage in childcare. Like, we did everything together, me and my siblings, and my moms and dads. Like, it was great. And that blew my mind, and I was like, what? Like, and I remember they kept saying, yes, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm normal, because like everybody was looking at them like they were just like, oh my god, like,
I would too, I'm gonna be honest. I would also be like, are you sure? Like, but I can believe it, like, and I want to believe it, because I think there's a lot of support to be found and fun to be had in a polyamorous dynamic that, like, it's helpful. I like dating people because I like getting to know people and like seeing different ways of living, like understanding, like, I feel like the intimacy that you get from dating, for like, I don't know why it's different, but it is different from like other types of relationships. And like, I think it's really special to be able to do that with multiple people at the same time, because then you start to really grow and change together, which is cool.
How do you guys look for people who share the same values as you guys?
Still figuring that one out.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not amazing. I have bad taste. Like,
oh.
no, not exclusively. But I do think it's kind of like hard. I think dating in general, I'm sure we can all relate. It just is hard. Like, like it's kind of and that part is the same. Like, just because I'm poly does not mean I'm better at like
dating,
picking people, finding people, like, and making it work, and like picking people that make sense. I guess. Like, but I do think it can be a helpful litmus test from the jump. Like, okay, are you down for me to be poly? Because I do have a partner. Like, I think that in some ways that helps, like, not eliminate, but it does kind of already silo like the population that is going to be down to even be poly. Like, probably will share some similar values of like, okay, they're probably less possessive, hopefully, or they're like more open to different dynamics in a relationship, or they're more independent, or they're probably queer. Also, I've noticed that. Like, I feel like it's easy. I mean, I don't know. I've never been straight and poly, so I don't know. But I do feel like it's been easier to imagine being poly within queer spaces versus I feel like straight people are the ones I find are more like shocked by the concept and more like I could never, or like more likely to be like, whoa about it.
Have you guys ever dated someone and they're like totally not into it? And like, did you guys have to like kind of convince them, or did you guys have to just kind of walk away from that situation and be like, well, it's not gonna work?
Not into being poly? Yeah, I think it has happened and it doesn't work. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. I think maybe, like, I want to believe it's possible, like, if you're with someone long enough and you really want to be together, that they could eventually become poly. But I have yet to see it. Like, I do kind of think if you're going in to a relationship and the one partner is not really trying to share, for lack of a better word, it's hard to get over that feeling, because even if the relationship is going well, there's sort of just always this, like, tension of, like, well, someone's not getting what they want. And I think ultimately that's sad and, like, leads to conflict, and ultimately, like, something has to be done. Like, either, like, it just, some things need to change.
Yeah. Well, this is exactly what happened to me, as you do know. No. I was in a relationship for like 3.5 years that, honestly, from the very beginning, I was like, I would like to be poly. But it was really clear that wasn't something that he was interested in. Yeah.
I'm guessing he was a straight man.
Yeah.
Yeah. A moment of silence.
It's actually sad.
Okay. No, but yeah. So there's that. And I think that at a certain point in the relationship, I think I had this idea of, like, I really, at the time, really valued the relationship and wanted to stay in it. And was kind of like, I guess, waiting for the moment where, like, those two competing needs or desires of, like, enjoying this relationship, but knowing that I really wanted to experience polyamory, like, until they were really butting up against each other. And then I guess, like, 2 years into the relationship, I, like, brought it up again. I was like, this actually feels like something that is important to me, and so are you, but I also feel like I, like, need to figure this out. And we began this whole journey of, like, talking about it and, like, beginning to do research and, like, reading a book that you could you're like, I'm past that now.
Yeah, I don't read anymore.
But this really good book called Open Deeply by some white lady. I don't remember. But it was actually very helpful and a really cool, I guess, overview of polyamory in the many ways that it can exist, and, like, the many ways that anyone's relationship agreements can be different. It's really helpful. But ultimately, even as we read it and I could feel the way he thought about polyamory, like, changing and expanding, I could also feel like it just not matching my pace and, like, not really, it just felt like I can't spend this whole thing feeling like I'm pulling you along to something that you don't really want to do. Like, I'm bringing it up, and if I don't, we might not mention it ever again. At a certain point, I was like, I think I need to, like, release both of us from that experience, which is kind of tough because I think we were at a point where, like, maybe that transition was about to happen. But ultimately, like, after we broke up, like, this man really asked me if I, like, broke up with him to, like, date someone else, which was how I understood, like, oh, like, you don't get what polyamory is at all, because I'm not trying to sit here and swap you out for someone. If I was, then I could just break up with you and date this other person, but I'm trying to have a different type of, like, relationship experience.
Yeah, so that kind of just highlighted that he didn't really get it at all. And also, I'm guessing, like, because I do think straight men, to a certain extent, like, do love the idea of, like, possession of their partner.
Oh my God. Sorry, this is so unrelated. Guys, this guy texted me that he wants a harem.
What is that?
Different.
What is that?
Also, what do you mean texted? Like, why does he have your number? Who is he? Like,
it's like a group of women who are like there to be your concubines.
Concubines.
Like, it's like
they're just around.
And unfortunately, yes, this was a man that I was talking to and hooking up with. But I knew that he was not quite smart. You know, we were just having a fun time. But then, why did he text me that?
Honesty, I guess.
No, I was like, I really wish you kept that fantasy to your head. In your head, like I
like can't. A concubine?
It wasn't like a joke, like.
But yeah, so back to that, like men have a thing about possession.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like I feel like polyamory is so hard for them to like kind of wrap their mind around because, like this person that I love and cherish is gonna go out into the world and like I don't own them and they can like. You know, I share them with other people.
Yeah, I mean, you asked about jealousy earlier, and I think that actually is a part of dealing with jealousy is remembering that you actually don't own this person at all. Like, even if you're like, I don't know, I think of myself as someone who's very chill. It's not fucking true. Like, in a moment of like, when you, so I'm just being honest, like when you're sending your, I don't know, not sending, that's the weird word, but when you're imagining your partner out in the world with other people, there is this sort of, I don't know if I think it's society, but there's sort of this innate fear that like this voice talking in your head, it's like, oh my God, if they're outside and they're not with you, that means they don't love you. That means like you're not going to be together. It means your relationship's not working. It means something's wrong. Like, and I think part of getting over jealousy is just releasing that feeling and be like, no, they're really just another human person. I'm lucky to be with them, but I have no control over them. And I don't want to have control over them. Like, I want what they want because I want them to be happy and I care about their happiness. And so that's like, I think part of the mental shifts I had to make in jealousy. And obviously, sometimes it's more successful than others, but I think, like, in moments of crisis, it's just sort of that reminder of, like, I'm doing this because I want them to be happy, and it also makes me happy. Like, when I get to do mine. Like, I don't feel like I would want to be restricted in the way that I'm not wanting to, but, like, you know, like, when you're jealous, like, the way I'm, like, craving to restrict them, and you have to kind of remember that, like, no, you want balance.
Well, honestly, two thoughts. One is just that I think there's just a way that we're all conditioned to feel like in romantic relationships specifically, like you should be someone's end all be all.
Yeah.
Like we don't have necessarily the same feelings about like friendship or even like, you know, the number, like your kids, like you can have multiple kids and love them all so much and have enough love for all of them, or like a big friend group circle and have enough love for all of them. And also recognition of like, this friend and I, like, we connect in this way, and that's what's so special about a relationship. And this other friend, like, this is what's so different in ours. And, like, the way that having different relationships can really draw out what's special about the individual ones. Like, we don't really think about that in terms of romantic relationships. And I think that's what's really beautiful about polyamory. And also, I think can help aid those jealousy feelings. Like, just the recognition that, like, every person is different and, like, brings something different to, like, each other. You know?
Yeah.
But I think the other half, though, is like jealousy often is like, I feel like jealousy, similar to anger, is like usually it's like a secondary emotion. Like, usually there's something you're feeling underneath that.
Fear. So much fear.
It's like, loneliness, like fear, like abandonment, like worries of rejection. And like oftentimes it's the need to address that thing. So like maybe it's not that you don't want your partner to like be out without you, but like when they come home, like, I don't know, can you stay in all morning and like kind of, you know,
true,
and be reaffirmed in the way that you actually need.
That leads me to my next question of like, you know, is that like maybe how you guys maybe reneged your contract, or like when you guys were, you know, you said you guys fought for a little bit and then like you guys had to kind of go back and actually like set some boundaries and expectations. Like, so how did you guys kind of deal with that when jealousy popped up? Like, to combat it.
I mean, first you cry, and then you like. I feel like the contract was fun in that I read this quote one time. I can't remember where, but it was this concept of like boundaries are not like limitations; they're more like invitations. So like it starts to feel at first the contract's like, oh, so scary, so restrictive, and then when you actually start writing things out, oh, it's like, oh, there's so much room to play. Like it'll be like one of the things in our contract was like, okay, you are it was like super specific, but it was like, you can go on 2 dates with this person without having to tell me first. Like, you can just go ahead and plan that. But if you want to do more than 2 dates a week with this person, like, you just got to let me know. And I think like it was kind of helpful to set that number, not because 2 was the limit, but because 2 was just like, now my partner knows like, okay, they can do as much as they want within 2. And then beyond that, it's just a matter of communication. It's not necessarily a matter of like restriction. So like when the jealousy comes of like, you've been gone 7 days this week, like that would never happen again because it's now in the contract. We've talked about how like, oh, some things can be casual and kind of spontaneous and other things I just like to know, but it doesn't mean you can't like still have the things you want, I guess is what I mean. Like a contract sort of reminds you that like anything is possible.
Yeah.
It just needs to be agreed on and like talked about.
An agreement, really.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Would you say that you've always gotten along with the person your partner's seeing? And do you feel like you have to? Like,
I don't think you have to. I think it's been actually funny noticing the way my partner and I have just like really different tastes in people, given that we like each other. It's like shocking. I was like
it's kind of crazy.
And I don't know if that's true for every poly couple. I just think like both if you look at our dating history, but then also just like specifically while we're dating each other and dating other people, like it just tracks. Like one of us would be attracted to a person, and the other person's like, how? Why? Like, how could you do that to me? Like why them? Like,
how could you do this to me?
And
it's so personal.
It's kind of nice in a way because I think that makes me feel validated in being poly. It's like, oh, we are different in some ways that I'm glad you're able to explore with other people because that's not my business. Like, I don't want to be doing any of that that you're doing with that person. Yeah. And then on the other side, it's kind of surprising because it's like when you're meeting, I guess, one of your partner's partners. I don't know if that phrase makes sense. But when you're meeting one of your partner's partners,
you're metamor.
You're also kind of looking for what they see in them. Like, it's kind of, it feels like a weird little video game to me. I'm like, like, what is it that y'all are up to that I don't know about? Like,
got you.
But sometimes we get along. I feel like it's been.
Do you feel like that's a jealousy jumping out, or like you're just like sizing them up?
Certainly
like,
nosiness. It's not always jealous, but it is curiosity, and sometimes can be like kind of cute. Like it makes me see other sides of my partner that I maybe hadn't noticed or wouldn't have noticed before they started dating this whole other person. Like.
Got you. I mean, I know you guys were reading and praying about it.
No, exactly. Fasting
like, about it.
Building up like, spiritual resolve.
Did you guys?
Sorry.
Did you ever like maybe start dating someone and then like your partner was like, "What the fuck?" Or like, were people interested in you, or you wanted to explore it? I mean, obviously, yeah.
Like, sorry.
I just want to know, like, how did he freak out? Because he definitely freaked out. He had to freak out.
I'm so weak. You know, I feel like that's definitely something that's important to me is to not transgress in that way. Like, I feel like, you know, as I was saying earlier, I think people try to use like polyamory as a cover for cheating. And I also think it's like possible to cheat within polyamory. And it's just like, it's just not my vibe at all. But they were definitely like, you know, people I thought who were cute, you know, someone's coming up talking about like, oh, they've been asking about you. And I'm like, really? Like, that's so interesting. And you know, like, again, toward the end of that relationship, as we're having those conversations, I'm sharing, like, yeah, like, this person said that they're into me, and, like, if we were open, I would probably want to pursue them. It's like the dam broke. Like, it's like, like, literally, like, just a tempest of just me, like, acknowledging that those feelings exist. I'm like, okay, so clearly we're not gonna get there. And I do think, like, I think it's honestly just hard to pivot your relationship model, like to go from a closed relationship to an open one of any kind, whether it's that like you're literally polyamorous and dating people, or it's just like open and like hooking up, or like you're swinging. Like, I think that it is just so radically different from what it is to be like a monogamous relationship. It's, I think, a lot easier to start that way, or to start with like, yeah, to start open.
Interesting. I actually disagree with that.
Really?
Yeah. Only because I don't know. I've never tried starting open, so I don't know. But starting open, how you're able to build the amount of trust I feel like you need to be poly with someone. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I do think in some ways it's helpful to have time with a person solo, so you can really like
so you don't
secure
think you can
in that relationship before you start kind of adding more to it.
So you don't think off the cuff you could just start?
I think you can. I just think, I don't know if it's like inherently easier, I guess, to start
feel
open.
Like it's giving experienced poly. Like if you have both been polyamorous, I think that it might be easier to start that way because you're both used to that dynamic. I do hear what you're saying, and like it might be hard to build the like trust and comfort and security if you like really honestly don't know this person,
I don't know
like
you
you
at all,
just started dating.
But that's also another thing that I wanted to bring up, in that I think more relationships start open than like people don't necessarily think of it that way, but like when you're dating someone, you're not dating them exclusively. Like, what is that if not a little bit of a type of open relationship? Like,
or like the talking stage.
the talking stage, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think
you're still dating,
yeah, but like it's like a euphemism. Like we're talking around the
fact that you're dating multiple people, like, or maybe you're not, and that's fine too. Like, you can hide whether or not you're actually with other partners, and people like that sort of secrecy. But I do think that is still being open, and it's something that used to get on my nerves. Being poly was feeling like, if I was like, I'm poly and I'm trying to date someone else, like I felt like there was a lot of, what's the word? I felt a lot of responsibility for like being super open, super communicative about all the people I'm seeing, and like the fact that I have a partner, and like just out the gate being like, this is who I'm dating, this is how I date, blah blah blah, which is a lot that I think people do not do when they're just like single. Like,
then
I don't come into a relationship being like, who have you dated? Who are you dating now? When will you see them again? How often do you see them? Like, none of that has to come up, except for when people know you're poly, they kind of weirdly like expect you to like pour your heart and soul out. And it's like, I don't know you. This is literally a first date. Like, I don't know why. I'm conflicted about whether or not I actually owe people that, although I have gotten feedback that I do owe people that.
I do hear what you're saying, though. Like, it feels like the expectation is higher, almost, in terms of what you're expected to disclose.
Yeah. Because I feel like I was saying this at the beginning, I feel like there is a higher standard for you, like when you are poly, like when it comes to like ethical polyamory. Like I've always
because
felt
these people are doing non-ethical monogamy
all
the time.
It's criminal. It's criminal
all the time. That everyone want to talk about Joe and Molly. Sorry, that was again bad polyamorous representation. That was crazy. But I think that
I recently learned this new term.
Okay.
And
I know what it is.
What?
Sorry.
It's compersion.
Say what you can say.
No, it's compersion. Sorry.
Yeah,
I read the sheet.
I mean, when you were like, fuck compersion.
That was me literally 35 minutes ago. But go ahead with your definition.
I still don't kind of really know what it is. Is during my research of compersion, like polyamory, like it came up. I know it has something to do with like enjoying, like watching your partner like enjoy somebody else, something to that sort.
It's giving like almost the opposite of jealousy, and I don't know if it's necessary that it has to be watching, because that's definitely giving voyeurism.
Kinky.
It is, exactly. But I feel like more so experiencing like happiness and pleasure, that your partner is experiencing happiness and pleasure with someone else, whether it's that just like they're out on a date and they texted you like, I'm having a good time, and you're like, oh. Or if it's like, I don't know, you're at the sex party and you see them on the swing, you're like,
shout out to you.
Exactly.
Getting it.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, compersion.
How do you like do you experience compersion?
Do I experience? Yes, I actually have experienced compersion before. Part of why I was feeling like fuck compersion is because I do think it's A, hard to achieve, and B, I think something that I feel like you're supposed to like strive for in a poly relationship, but you actually don't need it for your partner to still be able to experience pleasure. Like I think,
but didn't you just say it's like kind of like a combat to jealousy? So don't
not
you
a
want
combat? I was saying more so it's like,
just like the opposite.
The opposite jealousy.
Feeling.
Like, but I don't think that it literally combats jealousy. And I agree with you. Like, I think there's almost like this, like moral goal almost of like you need to get to a point of always experiencing
permanent compersion. Like,
and it's okay if that's not the case. As you said, jealousy is real. It comes back. It flares, whatever. And also just like sometimes, I don't know, sometimes you don't like whoever your partner's dating and you're just not going to feel that. You're like, go have fun. But like, I don't, you know.
Yeah, and I think it puts a lot of like, I think there's a lot of, you feel this feeling of like, oh, if I'm not happy 100% of the time in my poly relationship, then is it working? Like, should we still be poly? Like, should we shut it down? Like, we have to have another conversation. Like, it feels like you're adding a lot of work, when in reality, I do think some days are just going to feel weird. And like, again, in a monogamous relationship, like every day you feel weird is not always a reason to pause, reevaluate your whole relationship, like break it down, rebuild it back up. And I think compersion is a good goal to strive for. But I think even if you're feeling not even negative, like neutral, just like anything less than perfect bliss at your partner's joy, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing polyness. Like it could mean a variety of things. It could mean you're having a bad day. It could mean this is something that you need to work on. It's like a pain point that you're still feeling. It could mean that you're just like in a different headspace today, but you'll feel fine about it tomorrow. Like I'm petty as shit. Like some days it'll just be like, oh, I actually don't want you doing this, but it's not because of you. I'm just sad today. Like, and I think that's why I'm sometimes hesitant about compersion. However, sometimes compersion is really nice. Like I think for me, the easiest version of, or the most frequently when I felt compersion is like, it's nice when you see your partner feeling hot. Like, it's just like, I'm happy that this person that I think is hot also is now thinking themselves as hot because they're like getting with someone that they like, or they're out in the world, they just went on a really good date. And it's like, I'm glad you're feeling all of these, like, I'm glad you're feeling the confidence that I'd want you to feel because you're someone that I'm attracted to and like love being with. I'm glad you can see that in yourself.
Yeah, so it's really not like one or the other. Because I was gonna be like, oh, what's the line between jealousy and compersion? But it's like it seems like it's a range. Like it's a range of feelings, and like you said, you could be feeling petty some days. Like it's just like I'm sad.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, and then that's like a real like introspective thing to because sometimes you're right. Like I do be petty. Do you think you can like harness jealousy as like an aphrodisiac?
Oh.
Ooh.
Like as a tool for foreplay?
I've done it. It's like, I think it's tricky.
I've done it is so...
I'm just being honest. Like, I feel like definitely sometimes it's hot. It's like, oh my God, you were with someone else last night? Like, tell me more about it, but don't tell me I hate you, but also... like, sometimes, I don't know, it's like, it can be kind of hot. And then other times, it does veer towards toxic. Like, I think... I think the difference between, it's less about jealousy. I think when it's working and it's like an aphrodisiac, I think it's because it's coming from a place of like, oh, this is fun. This is kind of fantasy. This is like light versus when it's a real jealous, like when someone hits a pain point that is something you actually literally cried about like 2 days ago. It's like, why would you say that to me right now? Like, that is not hot. That is not funny. And it's like really finding that balance of like
not hot nor funny.
I think fake jealousy can be hot. I think real jealousy is kind of like, even if you're trying to make it kinky, can get messy really fast when you're like now trying to make light of something that was actually very serious. Like it starts to, it's kind of like when you just pull stitches out of a wound. Like why would you, like now, it's not going to heal right.
I guess I'm struggling with the fact of like your partner can date someone that you don't like. And like,
it's surreal.
And because like if I don't like someone, I don't like them, and the fact that somebody that I like is liking that person that I don't like even when I have beef with somebody, I'd be like,
don't talk to them.
You better not be fucking talking to them. That's beef right there. And so like, and that's like on some platonic friendship. Like I could be beefing with 5 niggas, and whatever. So like the fact that like you could be like, I don't like this person that you're seeing, but like, go spend a night with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that it's also like, is it a question of like, do you just like vaguely not like them? Like that's not like I would never key with this person, or like I actually don't like them. Like I actually have beef, because then your partner shouldn't be dating them. You know what I mean? Like there are also, I think, like back to like agreements and stuff, the ground rules of like everyone you date should like respect me and like not be my enemy. Like and that should be like everyone needs to be respectful and kind to each other in the dynamic, and like I don't know, I feel like that's just a important baseline. And if you don't like them, like maybe you're not gonna do, like they call it like kitchen table polyamory, which is like where everyone's like friends with each other and they can come sit at the kitchen table and like chat, and like you don't need that with everyone. That can just be your friends that you go
and you do your thing.
Go out with.
Literally, it's like I'm with a little friend. Like I will say that is something that one of the biggest things I learned in being poly was like learning to trust your partner's taste in people was something that I didn't realize that I didn't have already. Like that trust of like, sometimes I'll see someone, I'm like if they're dating someone, I'm like, okay, I have to believe that to some degree you are also a functioning adult, and like you're making this choice because there's something about them that maybe I don't see, and I just have to like really believe that you see something that I don't see, which I think is a hard lesson for me to be like, oh, I actually don't know everything, it turns out.
You're like, the boss has terrible taste. That's what I'm hearing over and over. No,
it's not true. Me too, I bet.
What's it like being polyamorous in LA versus like New York? Like, is it easier? Is it different? Is it the same? Like,
well, I'm feeling like in general, dating as a Black woman in LA is cursed. Like people have said that many a time. So that's, I guess, data point 1. But data point 2 is that, similar to what you said earlier, I do think queerness helps. I think that, I feel like the community I find there and like the events that I'm able to go to, like, it's just definitely, I feel much more well received and much more seen. Um, but honestly, as I've started to like dip my toe in, I've been like, damn, it's kind of small. Like, I'm really seeing the same people everywhere, and I'm like, hey, like, and now we're friends, and now I'm like, I can't talk to anyone, like, actually, because we've all swapped spit, and like, then someone's gonna be like sending screenshots of my text, like, it's just like a little too insular. So it's like nice to be in New York right now, where like there are just so many people, and but at the same time, I do feel like it is still like a small little insular world. So I don't know.
But I feel like that's what keeps it spicy. Everyone's always just like, everybody knows everyone, but like, come on, that is where the gag is. That's where the fun is.
It is fun.
Yeah, because like, even though we hate it and everybody knows everyone, but it's like, what's the fun? And if everyone's strangers, you can't really get into the tea of it all. I don't know. That's just me. Maybe me being chaotic, but
no, I agree. It's kind of nice to have that like mutual understanding of a person.
I mean, that was always my truth, but I'm trying to give up friend fucking. Not the fucking
I mean, you are a friend fucker.
It's no.
I hate to say it.
I said no.
No anymore?
No, but see, like, what you're saying, though, is I feel like revealing that. It's, like, not just me. Like, it's not just me.
Fucking your friends? What do you mean?
Well, yeah, because you're saying, like, the it's so fun because it's so messy and everyone knows each other. And, like, I've known you for a minute, but I'm the problem? Sorry, no, this is about something else now. Like, let's get back to it.
I wanted to kind of transition into, like, talking about group sex and orgies.
Oh.
Yeah, like, we're hard pivot. And then it's like, what role did these play in like exploring polyamory and finding polyamorous community? Because I know there are, apps and like whatever, like Field, Tinder, Hinge, whatever. And I've seen couples like create like couple pages on Hinge, but like I do know that like there is I don't know if it's underground in New York actually, but like there's like a sex. Like, there are sex parties, there are orgies, there are all those things. So, does that aid in, like, help, like, I don't know, helping you guys find, like, polyamorous community?
I think you would think, right? Like, in the sense that group sex inherently does feel like a poly behavior to be like, oh, we're, like, sharing, we're playing, like, a play party, sometimes what you could call it, of, like, oh, this is just a space where everyone can kind of, like, intermingle and get to know each other and, like, hook up if they want or, like, whatever. But I honestly don't think they're as connected as you might think, at least for me. Like, I feel like play parties are a place to find, like, kinky community and, like, learn more about sex in sort of a weird way. Just, like, learn more about ways to have sex and, like, different types of sex you can have and, like, how different people enjoy different things and, like, the range of that. But I don't think it necessarily correlates to, like, oh, and now I might start dating some of these people I met at a sex party. Like,
well, that's because I feel like they're, like, overlapping, but not the same communities. And so, like, earlier I mentioned, like, actually being polyamorous as in, like, I'm trying to date multiple people and, like, have, like, romantic relationships with multiple people versus, like, your relationship just being open and you guys can hook up with people versus, like, being swingers and, like, being people who go to sex parties and, like, you're in maybe a committed relationship or maybe you go solo, but, like, you go to these parties and maybe have, like, agreements. That's, like, kind of a lot of people who swing don't actually, like, date people outside of their relationship.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not exactly the same.
It's not a one-to-one.
Wait, but remember when you DJ'd?
Yeah, I did DJ a play party once. That was fun.
What was it? Was it called Bone Broth?
It was called Bone Broth.
Can you please explain that? Like
like the name or the whole party? Like,
tell us give us a story.
Yeah,
okay, once upon a time. No, it was cool. Actually, you asked like an hour ago, like if we had any examples of poly people before we started being poly, and no. But amid being poly, you met someone who was like an adult, like a grown person, and that was helpful.
Are you not a grown person?
No, but you know what I mean. Like, there's someone who's married, like, has been poly for, like, 6 years. Like, really just, like, in it to win it. Like, especially when we started, we were, like, 23. Like, didn't know anything about anyone. And this person lives in LA, actually, and was hosting this event and was kind of like, oh, we're looking for a DJ. I know you DJ. And would you want to play? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Because A, fun, I love to play music, and B, hot. That's hot. Like, kind kind of fun, like trying to curate a vibe for people to like get kinky to. I'm like, okay, you guys do that. I'll be over here. Like, have fun. I can see you. Like, I don't know. It's cute. It's a cute place to be. The concept of bone broth was like trying to do a play party different, which was like making it more intimate, a space for people who are not necessarily like social, for lack of a better word. Social is a strong word, but like a chiller way to find intimacy that isn't just fueled by like drugs and alcohol. Like the mission of bone broth was to kind of be intimate without needing like other substances, frankly. And like obviously there was shit there and I was fucked up. But I think like what was cool about the party was that it opened with we had all these cute games that we would play of like at first I was like, okay, I don't want to play a team building game. Like let me get
There's a team building game
at the play party.
You know what I mean? At first I was like, I don't want to do that. But I was genuinely shocked by how kind of hot they were. Like my favorite game was this thing where basically everyone was walking around the room and you would have like 5 seconds to like basically partner up with somebody. You were like trading partners. And when you're meeting a new person, you can either give them a hug, like give them a kiss, I think, or just like give them a compliment. Like it was kind of like you just had different options. And it was a little bit hot to like have not that much time, make eye contact with them and be like, oh, actually, I really would like a kiss from you right now. That would be really hot for me. Or to make eye contact with someone and be like, oh, I really like this thing of yours. Like, this is cute. Like, I'm glad you were wearing this shirt or whatever. And like kind of instantly build that sort of connection and like instantly turn everyone into the room into like a potential, like it's just more, it like sparked the potential, I guess, in the room and made everything feel a little bit more just like buzzy. Like you start to feel that like,
But what if you didn't want to hug, you didn't want to kiss, and there was nothing?
I kind of can't remember the rules. It was better than that.
Yeah, okay. I just imagine myself being like,
but you could pass also.
Oh,
got you.
You were allowed to pass if you didn't want to engage, which I think is also nice. Like the games were a helpful reminder of consent and like really intentional about like
because I heard you also
getting you used to getting rejected.
There's like a rule book, right? Like before you enter these parties and like
usually there's like a whole little
boundaries, expectations, how you act and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I guess the point of that party that I really want to get, why was it called bone broth? Like was there bone broth there? Like
yeah, it was kind of like a hot like side quest. Like it was a 12-hour party and in the kitchen they were making bone broth, which I guess takes
12 hours.
Yeah.
And so basically after you guys just drank, you just had some soup.
It was really cute.
Bone broth.
Yeah.
That is really cute.
Also, I think it's kind of horny. I don't know, bone. Something there.
The marrow. Yeah, no, there's something.
Have you ever gone to those parties with like your partner?
We did once. It went okay.
Are they into it or not?
There was a lot going on. But going back to the fighting period, it was like
this when I was staying.
Yeah. There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
What I'm realizing, one thing that we have never really done in our part relationship is like hook up with this person at the same time. And so I think what was interesting about the sex party experience was that like, although it was hot hooking up with each other in a public space, like that still was very good and normal. I think we were having a hard time like initiating the process of like, oh, now we're both going to pursue this person. It feels kind of creepy, honestly. Like,
no,
I haven't got over the feeling of like, oh, we're on the prowl as a couple looking for a third. Like, I don't know how to do it in a way that's chill. Like, because it just feels like you're coming from not power necessarily, but it is sort of this weird dynamic. Yeah, of like, we're together, we're going to be together, and you're going to come in here and like it. Or like, or you're not going to like it, and then you'll leave and do your own thing. Like,
yeah, you kind of feel that in couples throuple, like a little bit.
Exactly.
Like, the couples hold so much power.
Well, I think that's one of the problems with that show. Like, they really have no interest in talking about or addressing couples privilege or like really any of the things that are important to bring up in polyamory. But I think that show would be so much more interesting, honestly, if there were like only a few singles and like the couples were like having to court them. I really felt like it should have been that way to at least aid some of the inherent power dynamic of like someone coming into something that's like already established where like even if you guys say all the things about, you know, care and intentionality, just like somewhat inherently and implicitly there's a hierarchy in terms of like this relationship is the one to protect before like this.
Yeah, and I feel like we even saw it with like the couples like being able to like swap people out and like, you know, the singles were constantly like, like I want to be picked and stuff like that. And so
also there were some hot ass people on that show who were not picked one time. It was crazy.
I know we talked about this extensively.
And
they deserve justice, to be honest.
Yeah.
Even though it was a whole representation of polyamory, I like the games and the conversations that they were having were super insightful for me because it just kind of taught me about what goes into having. I mean, what goes into what type of thoughts or tribulations like happen while you're exploring polyamory. Now, how it manifested amongst the couples very different, and like yes, there was flaws there. But like as someone, like I said before, like I've only ever seen monogamy, and so the idea of exploring something that I have never had purview into, like nobody in, I guess, my lineage ever. Actually, I don't know what they've been doing what they were doing back there. And also polygamy was a thing. Like every, yeah, exactly.
So,
but it's like, but for a woman to have that power, I like, we are not empowered in any way to like explore our family planning or our love lives like that. And so like how, and I'm not sure if you guys like come from backgrounds where you guys have seen people do it. And so it's like, how do you kind of intentionally, seek these relationships out without having, any model of it? Like you're kind of charting a new path.
I guess first to the polygamy of it all. I remember me and you, like, literally in Ghana, like, we're just sitting doing our anthropological talks while we were drunk at the club. Sorry. But we're talking about, like, yo, these men and their multiple wives. And, like, my grandfather had 2 wives, like, 18 kids. And I was just sitting there like, yo, like, I struggle to believe that none of these, first, second, third wives, none of them were bumping purses. How am I supposed to believe that? Like, I just, that's really me. Like, because I agree with you, like, it's obviously these systems that like privilege like men and their power, but like, my uncle always says like the man may be the head, but the woman is the neck. And I'm sure there's some of these first wives choosing the second ones, or like just like
that is actually pretty. Like you'll see, like it's much common than people think. Like so a lot of
because she's coming into my house, and we're raising our kids together. So like
a lot of my aunts who do have like second like sister, they have sister wives. Yeah, the sister wives, like they're really good friends. They're really good friends with them, and they cook together. They do so many things together. They shop together. The second wife and them like just they hang out all the time. And at first I was like, yeah, like it's but it's like they're raising their kids in a community, and like their kids share the same father. Like it's only in your family's interest to be a healthy space. And I think that's like, I want to say like that's seen as like liberal or like progressive, whatever. There's obviously still issues. There's still issues. And that only ever works when like the man is rich. Like of course you guys get along. Because like
so true.
You guys have your own houses.
Isn't weird and like imposing favoritism.
Yeah, like you guys aren't. You guys all your needs and resources are being met.
Need to be set up for success.
So it's like you're fine. So of course you can do it. Like your husband's a billionaire.
And that's true about being poly in general. Like you should not do this if you're not mentally well. First of all, I do not recommend like because it's a lot of fucking work, and you should not do it if you have any other goals right now. Like
I'm so fucking weak.
Like I'm serious, bro. Like if you are genuinely trying to work hard at
it's work.
Like let's say you're trying to write a script, or you're trying to get a promotion, or you're trying to buy a dog. I'm serious. You should not start being poly. Like you can already be poly and like have.
Damn, are you?
Yes, bro. I'm so serious. It is a full-time fucking job, and it takes a lot of work to do it without ruining lives. Like I think if you're not constantly thinking about it, constantly being proactive, like constantly communicating, being very intentional, like dating 2 people at one time is a lot. Dating one person is a lot of work. Dating 2 people is like, when the fuck am I supposed to sleep? Like when am I getting my groceries?
That's why when niggas like pitch this, I'm like, what are you talking about?
What time do you have for this?
It's not a joke.
Like I remember like I was dating this medical student, and he was like telling me that he wanted to explore this or something like that. And I was like, as a medical student?
That's what I'm saying.
As a student of medicine?
When are you doing that?
Like, I thought you were busy. Like,
and that's different from, again, you can have friendships, like, you can even hook up with other people. But I think if you're genuinely trying to foster 2 relationships simultaneously, romantically, to build, like, a life, for lack of a better word, start, building a life with multiple people at the same time, it's kind of like the work of balancing those multiple lives is just more time consuming than I think people give it credit for. And I think, like, when life gets hard, obviously it's nice to have like a supportive community and have multiple partners who can like help you when things get hard, but like it kind of needs to happen. Like you shouldn't be trying to be poly while things are already hard or while you're already in an intense period, because it's a little tricky to keep things clean and focused, like parse things out and like make sure that what you're doing is ethical and sustainable long term.
Yeah, but I also just feel like naturally, like a lot of people, like this, us caring about the ethical part of it. Like I feel like there's very few people that get there, and I'm not, you know what I mean?
Because it's hard.
Yeah, it is really hard. Like to give a, it is hard to give a fuck. Unfortunately, these days, like not many people do. But I think for me, like just going back to the whole polygamy thing, I think the reason why polyamory is also so radical to a lot of people is like mainly because women can partake, because as you know, like polygamy, like men have been doing this for centuries and it's been normal,
and finding many different, you know, excuses for it.
Exactly. But like you said at the beginning, it's going back to the whole, like I do think there's an like some people like the lying and the cheating and the going behind the back and the betraying, like that's what excites them. That is what gets them going. And that's why I feel like honestly polyamory has been so radical. It's literally just because like women can be like, yeah, me too.
No, I mean, I'm a little Redditor, low key, high key.
I love r/polyamory.
Like it's so entertaining,
so messy over there.
And I'm just constantly seeing these men who asked their wives to open up their marriages, and their wives were not into it, but then they did, and their wives are pulling up and down, and these guys are like, I literally don't know how to get a date. Like the way that it backfires is just so insane, incredible, and like it will also be people who clearly were like, you know, not valuing their wife or like she's not that hot, but no, you're not the hot one, sir. And I think that is what gets people like rattled and shook.
Well, you know, studies do show that for gay men.
Studies do show gay men.
Studies do show gay men. Studies show that gay men are more likely than heterosexual couples, lesbians, and bisexuals to practice non-monogamy. And like, I'm not sure you know the stereotype. I've heard it a few times, but like lesbian culture has been described to me as like more wholesome and like loving, and like you hear the joke about like, you know, lesbians meet each other and they like move in and buy a house together. Yeah. And while like gay men are more described as like rambunctious or like slutty.
Sluts? Yeah, I was like sluts.
And I don't know if I can say that, but but like, do you feel like this is like a false dichotomy? Like, do you feel like this is like a perfect like description of it all?
What do you think? Especially post rave.
Yeah, fresh off the rave.
We were literally fresh off the rave.
I mean, I think it's tough because I feel like I have this conversation with lesbians where I'm like, I'm a horny lesbian. I self-identify as a horny lesbian and a slutty lesbian. And I'm like, I get upset when I'm like, where is my community? Like, why is everybody inside? Why is everybody bundled up? Like, and I think it's a variety of things. But one thing that I have heard in my many rantings and ravings, it's like, it's partially a safety thing. Like, specifically in New York, in my experience, I feel like gay men have like a strong nightlife culture. And I think like one thing I never considered super actively was like, I've been talking to people who will be like, oh, I love going out, but I gotta be home by 2 because I'm not trying to be out alone. Like there's a certain point where it's like, oh, I don't feel safe anymore in these spaces where I feel like sometimes gay men don't necessarily have to worry about that specific feeling. Or like, for example, there are like gay men will have parties that are like, you know, regular music parties where there's like literally just sex happening in the corner. And like, I'm like, why can't lesbians do this? And someone literally told me that like, when you post a party on like Instagram and it's like lesbians will be having sex, like random ass men start showing up. Like it's hard to really protect those spaces for lesbians to be rambunctious, to be slutty. We don't have an app like that's like convenient for that.
I was literally saying to Cahleb, like, I need Grindr.
But again, it's
lesbians, because like everyone's like, sorry, no.
Yeah, I mean, me and Cahleb we're talking about like I do think gay men probably have a lot more money and like. Just
cachet. Yeah. No, because in Los Angeles, like the lesbians were literally gentrified out of West Hollywood. Like during Pride in LA, like I'm walking around with like queer women friends, and like gay men are really walking up to us like, lesbians, like so surprised. Like it's Pride, babe. Like what the fuck? I'm not on display. We are all here. Like, so I definitely feel like there's part of it, but I agree that I think there are a lot of horny lesbians, and I think there are a number of things, whether it be the stereotype or whether it be like that we literally do often have like less earning power than like the gay like men's community. I think that it honestly keeps people from being able to act on that, like because they're like to the point of what I was saying earlier. Like I feel afraid to approach people in a casual way because I know that so many people like are trying to U-Haul, like like no one night stands, like look into my eyes and buy me a drink, and I'm like no, like let's just.
Do you think that patriarchal expectations pop up in sapphic dating?
For sure.
Yes.
That's a good question.
If so, how?
Less though. Actually, like I think that's what's nice about sapphic dating. You're free. Like if it's not completely true, but it's honestly a little bit about compersion. Like I think there's something inherent in sapphic dating that involves sort of like the independence of your partner. Like it's like I feel like there's a lot more. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been straight in a minute, but I
haven't been straight in a minute.
I feel like there's a lot more room to like both be honest about what I'm feeling in my sapphic relationships and also be ready to like there's more balance of like who's caring for who. Like there's not necessarily like an emotional imbalance of like I've dated men and sometimes I do feel like they could go to baby mode really fast where it's like, oh, you're feeling bad and I'm just gonna have to hold that until you feel better. Like I think I don't feel that same pressure necessarily in a lesbian relationship. Like I'm gonna hold it, but we're gonna work on it together. You're going to feel better, then one day I'll be sad and you'll hold me too. Like there's just more of that automatic expectation.
Yeah. But I do think that patriarchy seeps its way in. And
also, before we go, can we I just realized our viewers may not know what sapphic means. What does sapphic mean?
Well, I got you. All right, so basically,
Sappos?
there was a poet, an ancient Greek poet named Sappho. She was a woman. She was literally from the island of Lesbos. And she wrote poems about being very clearly attracted to and in love with a woman. And that's where the word lesbian comes from. And also to describe something that is giving, like, homoerotic, but in a lesbian kind of way.
Got you.
Sapphic.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great history lesson. History and lit.
Thanks.
Harvard degree.
I love etymology.
Period. Going back to how patriarchy. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I think that ultimately there are a lot of ways in which like queer relationships are free, but like patriarchy is the like, soup that we swim in. And I do think it like can just manifest. I don't know. Some of the most misogynist people I've ever like met have been studs. So like, there's that.
Yeah.
Talking about females, like what's going on here? Like it's just or even like, I don't even know if I would say this counts as patriarchy, but I'm thinking of like a couple of friends that I have. They are lesbians. And one is light skinned and one's like, I guess just a bit darker, like, but like that, I wouldn't say dark skin, just like darker. And the darker skinned one like is a bit more like femme presenting, but people have literally said that like she's giving the mask. And maybe I guess that's like color dynamics, right? And also like just racism and colorism dynamics. But there also feels something built in of like, why do you think that like this darker person's going to be like the quote unquote, the man, the mask, whatever.
Got you.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, I do think women to a certain extent are conditioned to value monogamy. Like at the end of the day, like I feel like, when I heard when they describe like, lesbians meet, fall in love, move in, like I was like, oh, I mean, that makes sense. That was like my first reaction. I was like, I do feel like that's what we're brought up to value at the end of the day, value love and whatever. So even if you do love a woman, like monogamy is the end result.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's that a lot of queer people are coming from places where they haven't been really well loved, whether that be in a romantic way or like by their family. I think a lot of people are coming from like very traumatic or traumatized places when they enter into relationships. And so I think it's almost something of like I've never had this before, so I'm going to cling to it with all of my might. And I think that that's really like normalized as well. In college, every like at the end of every year, they would like publish a list of couples getting married, and I swear it was always like either like very religious people of different religions, and then like young queer people who are like, yeah, I guess that does make sense. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's something to choosing family and finding family when you don't have it, but I also think it does lead to people like jumping into things faster or more heavily or intensely than they should.
At the end of the day, like the way like society perceive it. Like, it's only okay when men do polyamory, like, not women. For me, at least, like, I know one quote that sticks with me forever. Like, one of my, like, my mom told me, like, a few years ago, like, you know, the greatest honor you could ever, you know, bring your family is, like, your virginity, like, to your husband.
Shut it down.
And I was like,
Oh.
what? Like, really? Like, that's it? Like, not my degrees, what I accomplish, like, everything that I work for and kill myself for every day. It's her? Her whack ass? Like, she's not whack, but
Just keep leaving, guys. Yeah.
Why is it giving broken pussy?
I feel like, you know, to explore polyamory, like, you're constantly, like, I guess, like, I hate to make it sound like it's revolutionary or whatever the fuck it is.
And because I agree. I was about to say that. Go ahead. Keep going then.
But I feel like you are going up against a tide, or like, you know what I mean? There's so many things, like, structurally about our society or just how people think, where, like, it's, you know, you're up against something, but, like, it shouldn't be, is I guess what we're trying to prove with this part. Like, it should be just, like, another way to explore romantic relationships, and we already do it in some capacity in different ways, but it just is more so formed to men, or like their expectations and their fantasies, or whatever it is.
Is polyamory revolutionary? Like, no. It's just another way of being intimate with people, and, like, I think it's very easy to get, like, super high and mighty. Not me, never, but, like, in general, I think people can get really high and mighty of, like, oh, I'm poly, and that means that I am good at dating. And I actually think that's not inherently true. Like, being poly is just another way of dating. It's not necessarily a better way of dating, and it's not necessarily, like, it's just another skill. Like, relationship building is a skill, and, like, I think regardless of how you date, it's still something that you need to be working on and developing, and, like, kind of, it's not necessarily, like, a better thing even for society. Like, I don't think poly is gonna save
The
society,
world.
or, like, I think there's obviously some pros, but there's also some serious cons. Like, it's hard to negotiate. It's, like, hard to keep track of stuff. It's, like, hard to keep one person from feeling out. It's hard to schedule things. Like, what if you do want to have kids? Like, it's not impossible.
Who's going on
but
the birth certificate?
yeah,
How are we traveling?
who's literally carrying the baby? Like, just, like, little stuff. Like, some stuff that is maybe more implied in monogamy now comes into question with polyamory. So I definitely think, like, I don't know if it's important to remember. It depends on who you are, I guess. But, like, if you're someone who's considering polyamory, like, I don't think it's necessarily something that you should do or should not do. Like, I don't think it's a moral thing in that way. I think it's just another option.
Yeah.
You gotta check in.
How would you say you prioritize, like, sexual health and communicating?
I mean, you get tested. I think, yeah, you get tested, and
I feel like there's just, like, a lot of misinformation where people, like I said, again, like, one of the myths is, like, it's a free-for-all. Like, it's a fuck fest. Like, we get to do whatever we want. But I feel like what I really want to get across and clear is, like, if you're running away from commitment and, like, being a good person, like,
polyamory's not for you.
Yeah, it's not gonna save you.
It's not for you.
It's not gonna save you. If you really like betraying, lying, and pillaging people's lives, like, this is not going to save you. No, it's not gonna save. It's not gonna save you. And, like, there's a level of commitment. There's a level of honesty that you need. And it's like, also, if you find yourself with someone, like, you know, I don't like being with just one person. Like, it's okay, because we do have those serial monogamists that are constantly with someone, not treating them well, and, like, always have that wandering eye, and they want to explore other relationships. But it's like, if you think that is your way out of just having a commitment to someone, no, that's not what polyamory is. And, like, that needs to be clear. Would you say that monogamy is in your future?
Yeah. I mean, it's in my present. I don't know. We recently closed our relationship, actually. Like in I guess in this year, like in January.
A few months ago, right?
Maybe December. Which has been good. I feel like it's been nice to go back to being closed, actually.
Was it because it didn't work, or you guys were just like, it's not the phase that we're in?
It was a combination of things. Ultimately, I think we had lost some intimacy. Like, I think, like I said, we were maybe open for, like, 2 years, and, like, around when we decided to reclose, I do feel like we had kind of not drifted apart per se, but we had kind of lost, like, a sense of, like, oh, I feel really secure in our relationship. Like, I feel really tender with this person. And it wasn't necessarily because of being open. Like, I think, again, it's possible to have intimacy and be poly, but I do think we wanted to refocus and sort of recenter our partnership first, and kind of, like, dive into that you know, kind of like it's like foundation, like kind of reinforcing some foundational things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if monogamy is in my future forever, but it's been nice
Oh,
being
so it's
close.
not permanent. You don't think it's permanent?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, yeah. I mean, shit slowly
But
changes.
being a horny lesbian.
Yeah,
like,
I was like,
just,
look at him, look at
so
him.
I doesn't feel practical forever. Sorry. Like,
yeah. No, but then when the time comes, you guys really should read the book. Like,
Yeah,
it was really
What did you
helpful.
say? Did you say fuck the book earlier? Or were we like,
no, I said for
reading-
compersion.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So the book still does work.
Book's good,
Reading
I
does
think.
help.
Mhm.
Reading does help.
It definitely
What ab-
helps. It actually helps a lot.
Yeah.
What about you?
Is the question if monogamy is in my future?
Yeah.
I feel like probably. I don't know. I agree that it's not necessary to like always be polyamorous. Like I feel like you really have to do what like works for the season of your life, honestly.
Mhm.
And I can imagine that there will be times where I'm in close committed relationships and where those same relationships open up and when like actually now like that's not really where we are and they close back up.
Mhm.
Um
But you like. I feel like you like more of the option that
Yeah.
we can be fluid. We can
mhm,
grow.
we can like
communicate.
assess our needs
Yeah,
and our
and
desires
move
at
from
any
there.
time and exactly.
Yeah, and you definitely are looking for a partner who can like kind of
Mhm,
make
mhm.
that journey or transition
Because
with you.
I fully definitely am like on that place of like sometimes it's time to close like it was time to close the relationship, you know, like
Yeah.
we gotta tighten up, you know.
Yeah.
And other times it's like actually like things are going really smooth. We have like really chill schedules, like
Yeah.
promotion secured last year, so we're
Exactly.
I'm speaking it into yeah.
But that's it,
Definitely
y'all.
not.
I want to thank you guys so much for coming on and having such a fun conversation with me. I feel like I learned so much. I know that's not your job to teach me anything, but
No, but I'm happy to educate.
Yeah, but it was like so much fun.
Use my life as a
honestly.
lesson.
If you guys liked what you saw, please follow us at On Our Terms Pod, and you can follow me, your host, at utomzy. You can find you guys at
_Skylar with 9 R's.
Awesome. All Ducks Rock.
period. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.